Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Season 2, Episode 10, titled Fungus, Humungous. I love this episode. I thought it was really, really well done. First off, the story of it was really cool because it was the sort of suspenseful type of episode. Obviously, you knew it's the Turtles, so of course they're going to win. But it was kind of like, who's going to get infected, who's going to have what, real big fear. And obviously, we know all the fears, but of course, if you're like me, you don't just remember every single person's fear. So it was kind of cool to see those fears come to life. And one of the, or definitely my favorite thing about this episode was how much, time clearly went into it with all of the digital stuff they did. Obviously, with everyone going through like their worst fears, one of the worst ways to experience your worst fear is in abundance. So whenever anyone had a huge fear, like Raph and Casey, it was just like here's like a million tiny little cockroaches running all over the screen, or here's just a ton of rats. Like especially with the rats to me, because when Casey was like pinned up against the wall by Danny and Raphael, when they were talking to him, like he clearly saw them, but then it was just like rats were like running all over their face and stuff, and basically it was just so many rats after a certain time you couldn't see them. And I thought like that's just really good CG. And of course eventually, like me not knowing any CG, I assumed they just like deleted the models of the turtles and just replaced them with rats. But it was just really well done. And it was like like I said, all the cockroaches and stuff, when they're just tons and tons of them. And what Leo went through when the turtles were like different sizes but they were all giant, and they had like no eyes, and it had that really creepy aspect to it. But I thought it was a really, really good episode. The action was kind of cool, even though they were really just fighting like little mushrooms. But it was a really good episode. And initially, what I thought was, it was gonna be like April got infected by this thing, and I thought that it was actually her dad that was infecting people. Like it was just some crazy power that he had, and that he kind of infected her, and he was gonna take her or something. But I was very wrong about that. But it was a really good episode. And the thing with Leo in the beginning with Master Splinter, I knew for a fact like that's clearly gonna be how he saves everybody, and it was gonna be he has to face his fear. And initially, I didn't think he'd get infected. I thought it would be like everyone else got infected, and even though he didn't get infected, he was gonna be living his worst fear. So it really surprised me when he did get infected, and that kind of made the episode even cooler to me, because I just thought, like I said, oh, everyone's gonna end up infected at some point, and then even without being infected, Leo's gonna have to deal with the fact that he was the leader and he lost everyone, just like he said. Like I don't want to be, I always have my worst nightmares that I'm the leader and everyone gets dragged away and I can't do anything to help them. And that's exactly what happened, and he was kind of living his worst nightmare already. But he does get infected, and of course his training with Master Splinter, he's able to overcome that, and he fights off the mushrooms, which was once again that was actually a pretty cool scene too, where he's running around and stuff, and then eventually he saves everybody. I thought it was like a great one-off episode. It had everyone in it too, so we got to see Casey, which I'm glad we got to see Casey. And it was just a really good episode. It took place all in the sewers. Also, one of the funny things was the same construction worker who's always working in the sewers. He was the guy who found I can't think of his name, but the giant crocodile. He was the guy down there when that happened. I think he was in another episode where something else crazy happened in the sewers too. But he's always the same guy, and he always like something crazy happens, and you think he just wouldn't, like, I'm not going in the sewer. I'll work up on the streets or something. But I thought that was really funny in the beginning of the episode too. That it was like the same guy who has just problems and problems in the sewers. But that was a cool little thing that they threw him in there. But overall, really love this episode. Like I said, I love the CG about it, or within it. I don't know what I said about it, but love the CG in it, and just how much time I knew they had to take on this episode, and just how much work they really put in, and how well done it was with all the, like I said, the rats and the roaches, and then just bringing in all these things that we've seen in other episodes, like the squirrelinoids and stuff. And then in the end, kind of had the little teaser where there was still a mushroom that was like dancing on the pizza. I don't think that's really gonna come back, but it could. I'm sure Mikey like just destroyed it and then that was it. But they could easily write another episode like that where some of the mushrooms survive, somewhere else, and they can bring this sort of aspect back, and it could be citywide, and it could be it could actually, if they really wanted to do it, this type of thing could expand into something that would be like sort of a season finale type of thing where they really have to save the city and basically the world from being destroyed by these mushrooms that just make people go insane, with fear. But ultimately, love the episode, love the bits of action. Comedy was also really good because of course everyone's fear, in a way they made it really funny. Raphael freaking out about the cockroaches and all that stuff was just, it was really funny, and it was just a really good episode that didn't really advance the story, and it was one of those one-off type of episodes. But it was definitely my favorite this season, and probably throughout this entire series, my favorite sort of one-off type of episode. But comment below, let me know what you guys thought of this episode. Favorite parts, least favorite parts, and since this was the first episode with everyone in it, I mentioned 2 weeks ago, we finally got to see April's friend, whose name I cannot remember right now. But she's kind of the last sort of main character we have to wait and see. But what, sort of villain characters do you guys want to see that we haven't seen yet? Or characters in general that you guys might remember from like the TMNT cartoon, or if you watched, the old 80s one, which characters from that do you guys want to see? Because I know I want to see, I still want to see Rocksteady and Bebop. I'd like to see just kind of how they play them, because I don't recall them being in the series so far, like in any way. Of course, I could just be forgetting because I have a horrible memory like that. But I do want to see Rocksteady and Bebop, and I've mentioned this a ton of times. I want to see Baxter Stockman turn into the Fly, because when he was the Fly in the 80s cartoon, he became really, really powerful, and he was actually strong enough to beat Shredder, but he was just kind of manipulated in that cartoon. But I'd love to see him become the Fly in this series, or reincarnation of the series. So comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.